Okay, you poor bastards. Tempted to say you wanted the woo, and here it is. Very cold outside, as you can see from my little cutout image. So this is Conwoosions. And so we're going to go through a bit of thinking and a bit of conclusions and dive into the woo. Motivations help, right? It helps to understand why someone is doing something. I've been active recently, running little bits of software. I'm bored. I hate the software. I've been doing it too long. It drives me crazy. I want to do something different. But we've got all this, COVID lockdown-y shit and bad weather and, the various political revolutions going on and the culture wars and all of this kind of stuff. And I find them all rather boring. They only go so far and then they stop. I'm waiting for the ultimate, right? The conwoosion of it all, the conclusion of it all, which is that the Antifa, BLM, Wokians, they're so old school. They're so last century. They're old communism. We've been there. We've done that, right? And it didn't work when we were doing it. And they can only advance so far, and then they turn and eat each other, and it all collapses. And that's been the way it is with that whole mindset all of this time. And so they are not radical enough for me. It's like, hey guys, you're just not radical enough for me. You can dye your skin any color you want. You can dye your hair any color you want. You can chop off any body part you want. You can sew on any body part you want. You're just not radical enough for me. You don't have serious woo. Okay, now serious woo is coming. All right, serious woo is starting to break out all over. I'm with Stephen Bassett. He's a serious woo dude, right? No question about it. He's serious, he's into deep woo, and he will not be deterred. I have a business. I'm semi-retired, but I've got a business. The original name of the business it's not Half Past Human. The original name of the business, the overall operating concern, is Tenax Propositai, which means firmness of resolve, commitment to the proposition. And my commitment is to the proposition of woo, very much like Stephen Bassett. I think that's his name. He's a woo activist. And he's not into general woo, he's into specifically space alien woo. I like space alien woo. I'm not into general woo. Ghosts and all of that kind of shit. It's too easy to get into and explain and all of this. If you've been to hyperspace a few dozen times, issues such as a lot of the woo people here on Earth that think they're woo people get hung up in, yeah, I know, goddammit. Get hung up in things like entities and ghosts and orbs and all of this kind of stuff, all of which are just so easily dismissed, and who cares about them? They're not conscious, and they don't have consciousness in the way that is meaningful. Maybe annoying, but not meaningful. So my deep woo is the whole space aliens, alien presences, ancient history, real history of humans, the serious deep woo, okay? And that's going to be happening here real quick. And so I have conwoosions about the deep woo. And I have these conclusions due to a thing called first principles thinking. And so what you do is you organize the way you think about things into a protocol, and you follow this protocol, which is first principles. And it's a very simple protocol. You establish one thing you know to be true, and you peg it, so to speak, or write it down. I know this to be factual. And from there on, any conclusions you come to, any evidence you get, you apply against that first principle of your thinking. And you always can build back from that to where you are if you come up to a bad turn. So if you bring something in and you accept it, and it's invalid in terms of the way you've accepted it, and later on it needs to be discarded, you don't have to throw out all of your thinking. All you have to do is unwind back to the point where that came into the process and pick up with your conclusions from then on, and you're fairly reasonably solid in your progression. And this is an aspect of scientific method where you note all of the data as you're coming in with a protocol, the date, the time, the kind of octopi you're dealing with, what its behavior was, the temperature conditions, the salinity, atmospherics, electrics, all of these kind of things, right? All of the potential variables that could affect the experiment. And so we think of ourselves in first principles thinking as doing experimental thinking. You can do thought experiments very safely using first principles thinking and not get your head all goofy, okay? Because you always can wind back and always will wind back to things that are solid and proven, and you can go from there step by step by step. Again, let me hold up The Theory of Natural Philosophy by Roger Josephus Boscovich. Really, Ruggero, is it Giancarlo or Giuseppe? I can't remember, Boscovich, because he had an Italian name. He's on the border between Serbia and Italy at the time in the 1700s. He worked off of first principles, and he took all the way back, and he describes the ether from which we get the field, from which we get stars, planets, universe, etc., is all within the field which derives from the ether. And he explains it all to you. It's a very valuable book. If you wanted to, you could pursue it like myself and get patents and useful devices and intellectual breakthroughs from it. But it's also a very good example of absolute step-by-step conclusions from first principles thinking. So in that sense, it's a tutelage. It teaches you how to go about it. Anyway, so this video is to clean up a lot of notes I've got from running my data processing here recently. Now, I'm not able to run my full system. I mean, those days are so long past because of the censorship that we'll never see the like of them again. So it was just a brief period of time when we had an open internet. I had access to all of the language, and then censorship clamped down. Wokeism rose to the point where we had political correctness, which people then started self-censoring. Then we had the actual political censoring as Wokeism went into politics, and it came back to bite the language, and that totally shut the system down in these last couple of years. Could not work now at all. However, what I have been doing is I've found a couple of small areas on the internet that are suitable for getting immediacy data. Immediacy data is not like intermittent or medium-term or long-term data in terms of what kind of values it brings back. Immediacy data lasts usually expected from like 3 days from now, or actually right now, but I throw away anything that's in this 0 to 3 day period just because it's going to happen much faster than I can digest it, especially with the slowness of the time I'm doing. But it's 3 days from now out to about 6 weeks is the range of the data, with the most effective period of time being about 3 weeks out. That is to say, I've got more data clusters within the 3-week period showing up. That forms the base of the golden ratio with it. So the latter half of the latter 40% of the data set will be much more sparse than that in any section within that first 60%, basically. In any event, though, so I get a lot of building and release values, building tension and release tension values that are forecast on the language. There undoubtedly are censorship issues, but the areas that I'm sampling are more freely accessible to a wider range of language. So if this is the current range of acceptable social discourse, the Overton window shit in social media, then I'm in an area where the borders are a little bit more flexible and they're wider because of the nature of the people participating. So I'm somewhat confident in the emotional. I'm 100% confident in the emotional tension values, the summations that are coming out, and I'm somewhat confident that I'm getting a decent range of verbiage from which to select for descriptor sets that may be associated to these pending rise and fall being forecast within the building tensions. I hope that makes sense. This video, again, as I say, is sort of an explanation as to what's going on, and this is an explanation of the motivation. I was bored. I'm sitting way out here on the coast. The beach is great and all of that, but we're in lockdown and so on, and I've been somewhat restricted to the house, and so there's not a lot to do here. I'm reading my books, getting my patents, but until I can actually get my hands on a full-size laboratory, we can't really start constructing a lot of this stuff. I'm really hamstrung by this little building I'm in. In any event, though, as a result of that, I started monkeying about with the software again, something I really didn't want to do, and then started picking up on some of the immediacy values and started becoming a little bit more active, as they say, with this stuff. Anyway, that's why I started picking up on things like the Four Amigos deal with, what's his name, Sasha, and Simon Parks, and Robert David Steele, and Charlie Ward. And I'm still picking up on Charlie Ward and some of these other guys, right? There's people that are listening to them, and because of the outrageous nature of the things that they're saying, that outrageousness alone causes the stuff to be written down or discussed, and then I pick it up on these places I'm going to. And so it's like, oh, great, more of this crap from Charlie Ward. And like recently, like just running stuff here in the last few hours, I find that he's been discussing the idea of, so he's in the woo business. Charlie Ward is this guy in woo business. He's a bald guy, which, and that sort of gives him a little bit of credence, but we have to discount that, right? He might as well have a full head of hair for all the bullshit he's peddling. I don't think he's ignorant, therefore I must conclude that he's not stupid, and therefore I must conclude that he's deliberately lying, because I can't conceive that he believes the bullshit he's putting out. He apparently owns a hotel or manages or runs a hotel in Spain, and he's somehow a doctor. I haven't investigated him. I don't know what kind of a doctor he is. Could be a podiatrist, could be a honorary degree, could be a made-up degree like Sean David Morton. So anyway, though, Charlie Ward is saying that this woo guy, but he has no integrity. I don't think he uses any methodology for thinking, any method for thinking, and thus his conclusions and his statements are really suspect. He's in the woo business. He says he was in with the dinar, as I understand it, which is, that taints him seriously, because that's been a giant scam being run for, 20 years? That's the Iraqi dinar revaluation shit, which is never going to happen. Now he's been associated with this Nasara Gassara, which is the replenish the earth full of money. Everybody's going to be bazillionaires. Basically another Iraqi dinar scam in a different guise. These are very hurtful things. They cause people all kinds of emotional damage as well as financial damage. Anyway, so recently Charlie, the woo dude, has been saying that he somehow so now he states that he gets two types of information, some stuff he knows to be true and some other stuff that he doesn't know if it's going to be true or not, and sometimes they use him to put out disinformation. So it's kind of like, okay guy, let's examine what you just said there. You're saying that people deliberately use you to spread disinformation, aka, that is to say, lies and falsehoods, and you're okay with this. I roll my eyes and say, okay, well, all right, that's an explanation that you have a loose moral base, are not discriminating in your information, and have no problem deceiving other people when you are told that and he doesn't even say that it has to be deception for the better good or anything. He sort of alludes to that, but he doesn't even say it. So basically, he's cool with people telling him lies to pass on to you. And this is good, Charlie. Okay, yeah, that's real good. He also says that attacks like this, I'm not even attacking him, I'm critiquing his presentation and his thinking. So these critiques like this are because he's over the target and he's getting flack. And it's like, no, he's not a bomber pilot. He's not killing people with bombs from high altitudes. He's not serving the British Empire in any kind of a noble cause in his own mind. And to allude that way, to set the analogy that way with that statement, is a falsehood itself. Okay, critiques like this are because he's peddling bullshit, not because he's over the target and he's going to get flack. That whole metaphor is self-aggrandizing and patronizing to the people that he puts it out to, and these kids swallow that because they're not educated in rhetoric and debate, basically. And anybody who's been through a traditional British military education is educated in both those, debate and rhetoric, and you can see it coming, right? So anyway, Charlie is now saying that he knows, and I presume it's because he knows for sure that he's saying it this way, but he says he knows that there's body parts coming out of deep tunnels from underneath the White House. Another big roll your eyes here, guys. And of course, these body parts and stuff, they always go to the weaponization of empathy, and they always want you to place that empathy on all of the missing children and all the abused children and all the trafficked children and all the dead children that are supposedly buried under the White House and elsewhere. And Charlie, I'm just simply Charlie, that guy, is saying that he's helping with all of this by telling you these things, even though he's cool with the idea of people lying to him to pass those lies on to you. So anyway, though, so body parts coming out from underneath tunnels in the White House. He has no idea of the hydrology and the geomorphology of the Potomac Basin. Dude, you cannot have deep tunnels under the White House. It is a literal swamp down there. You wouldn't believe what they had to go through to put in those little short bits of existent tunnels that are there for the subway and for the the FBI scurrying tunnels, and they're always in need of maintenance. They're weeping constantly. This is not a place that you can dig down multiple stories and put in any kind of a secure structure, because the Potomac River makes, and you're in the delta of the Potomac River, and you're in the semi-solid area that they've solidified by basically doing everything they can to drain that area, and it's a constant battle. So just on the sheer makeup of the land around there, this is highly questionable, and points the finger of saying this is yet more bullshit from Charlie Ward. I don't know, this was recent. He was saying this in the last couple of days. So I don't know where it was said. I just saw a text reference to it. Anyway, though, so you got to be careful about the stuff that's being peddled and the conwoosions that come with it, because some people are into real confusion, if not deliberate disinfo. And like Charlie Ward says, his own words, he's cool with people telling him lies to pass on to you. So, okay, that's fine, Charlie. Is this a lie? When do we find out? Anyway, so drop that. Okay, so pass on all of the Sasha, Robert David Steele, and all the rest of that stuff. Those guys are also out there contributing to disinfo like mad, pouring it out on BitChute and Rumble and a few other places that then gets discussed on some of these things that I go to. Now, we can, okay, so the real woo is that there is accurate conwoosions to make here. And that is that you can see that the Capitol is ringed with a very extensive razor wire topped heavy gauge restraining fence. Okay, so and it is set up, designed the way it's set up, except in a couple of sections I've seen, it's designed to keep people on the Capitol side in and not keep other people out. But there are a number of people on the ground. They're going around and showing you videos of the situation. There's also a fair number of soldiers there bivouacking basically in very miserable conditions and doing fuck all guard duty, just walking around, okay? And it appears that they are the majority of people within the Capitol grounds. Now, true, it's winter. You wouldn't expect a large number of people to be stomping around on the Capitol grounds in the middle of winter, but there are people that plan vacations and then weather happens and they go anyway. So there would have been some level of that. But at the moment, it's pretty much a ghost town. So we can start saying, all right, we have a first principle here. We know this to be factual. We can see multiple sources of videos that are showing this, and you can start thinking about things based on the fact that we now know that a big chunk of the Capitol area is corralled and basically empty. And all of the Washington is way restricted, and you can't just walk around freely. There's all of these other conclusions that come from that. We also have videos that show motorcades and Marine One helicopter, I guess you'd have to call it a squadron. It was only 3, but you know, the Marine One and then 2 decoys, right? They're all flying around and doing stuff, but they don't appear to be transporting El Pretendency Biden. In fact, I can't find any definitive video that shows El Pretendency Biden or Assistant Pretendency Harris in the White House. So, nor is there, and you know, he's on this other plane that's not really Air Force One, and the leftist media is cranking out stories like mad saying, yes, it is Air Force One, you know, any plane he flies on is Air Force One, and then they never address the fact that it's not the other plane, and it's a real step down kind of a deal, right? So they're trying to deflect and bitch slap you for questioning it without ever addressing the actual questions underneath it all. Yet again, you can form a conwoosion from that this is a woo item. It doesn't make sense relative to what's going on. If he actually won, why isn't he flying around on Air Force One? You know, if she's actually a vice president, why isn't she in the vice president's residence? And yeah, they can say that, oh, well, we got to replace that chimney liner. Okay, all right, sure, I can buy that. But there's no real sign that anybody's in the White House, and there's no activity there relative to, you know, things like usual amount of video coming out. So if you wanted to do a comparison, you could go and do just a sampling of all the video done on CNN, or pick any of them, doesn't matter, MSNBC, whoever, or all of them, do it as an aggregate. All of the videos on Biden from the inauguration until now, and do a subset search on White House or Washington, D.C. or something, and then go look at the same period of time for Trump, same number of days after the inauguration. And you see Biden, there's just virtually nothing in the way of video evidence of him stomping around in the White House. Whereas, and of course, yeah, they've got this real hard on for Trump, all the media people do. And back when, in 2017, they were, you know, just flooding the place with, you know, oh my God, the horror, Trump got in. But the ratio is gigantic compared to Biden. You know, so there's another conwoosion you can make. You can use that as a basis for your thinking. Media is being deliberately, gigantically manipulative and isn't hiding that manipulation. They're not attempting to even alibi it. And so far, there's no other sightings of El Pretendency Biden in Washington, D.C. other than media. So in other words, whoever is going into these press conferences and so on in the pretend White House in Culver City is complicit. with all of this, right? Because they're not letting on that they're not in Washington, D.C. And we don't see a lot of the press people shooting photos of each other accidentally or even deliberately interviewing each other the way that they would frequently do within the White House setting. None of that is available at this point. It's just zero. And so yet another conwoosion is that we're seeing a media presentation. That is to say, the sightings of Biden are only by video, basically, being delivered by video. Now, that is true always, but we don't have any accidental sightings either. So of him getting off the airplane, you would have the media there now providing you with video of this, but if he was actually getting off Air Force One in the appropriate circumstances or getting on or whatever, you would also have the occasional fellow like myself who might be at the airport who gets a camera thing that then shows up on the YouTube or whatever. We don't have any of that. We don't have any of the populace accidentally getting video the way that we should, that we've always done up until now. And maybe it's coincidental, you know, just like the Biden sudden jump in votes, okay, that sort of thing. It happens, they say. Okay, all right, so glitches happen, and a glitch in reality that nobody can see Biden except the media. So apparently we're getting a doctored view of reality would be one conwoosion that you can get out of this. Now, there's all kinds of other stuff here that came up in the data around this relative period of yesterday with the electrifying, the release, the central banks. We also had the pile up in Texas, all of those vehicles, the ICE, the weather participating, and so on. And the new stuff that I've got that rolls out from March 24th onward, sorry, February 24th onward over to March 25th is quite extensive. I don't have any real solid confidence in any conclusion I would come up with because the data set is so small. However, within that data set, we have tensions. It starts in on about 8 a.m. on February 24th, and it goes through to 12 midnight on the 25th of March. And that's simply the range of the ability of the software with immediacy data. After that period of time, it just drops down in terms of the values we can get out of it because we're using this predictive linguistics thing that I built on the emotional reduction engine. But anyway, so we've got tensions to start off with, lots of complications. Physiology and psychology are going to be big discussed terms. We've got war, breakdown in politics. We've got genocide showing up repeatedly. That may be a good thing because maybe we're going to get more discussion of the CCP and their genocide against the Uyghurs. Got a lot of breakdown on belief and the breakdown of delusions, breakdown of illusions, constructed alternate realities. So a lot of fake media, fake news is likely to be broken up, or we'll be able to get real accurate seeing of what was underneath it, so to speak. We've got crashing, crushed, belief systems being tested. Other things though, is the rise of people. Okay, so there was this some subsets that were showing that after people had the delusions or the illusions, the veils stripped from their eyes, they were in a situation of falling prey to new delusions and new illusions, trying to rebuild that point of view structure that they had that is no longer valid because of something external that broke it up. And so they're going off on a seeking, basically. We see a lot of stuff here on response to banking crisis, silver, gold, and currencies, debt levels, politics really hitting that. A lot of people getting sick as a result of the currency issues. Now, this may feed back into Dick Allgire's crew and their remote viewers, highly skilled. And they have this image of people in the halls of power, let's just say the halls of Congress, getting sick over the emotional impact of what's going on with the financial system. And now I've got a lot of the same kind of stuff described in language. Sickness, loss, blood pooling in your feet, grief, fear, fear of future, immediate fear of death, exposure, inhibition, and then there's all this body language about the results of the fear, and it just goes on and on. So there's going to be within this, so within this discussion, the data sets would suggest that between February 24th and March 25th, we're going to have this episode that will elicit this response, and that Dick Allgire's group's illustration of the people in the halls of power going through the heaves and all of this kind of stuff as a result of the emotional shock, of the financial shock, is being basically described, and it's being described from February 24th through the March 25th in the language. The way that the immediacy language runs, it's all packed in there in terms of emotional tension and release values, so I get big spikes. But if there's not a big spike, if it's just a big elevated thing and keeps going, then it's just so frequency generated that it appears as a more or less solid line when graphed out. And so it's not necessarily meaningful. It has some waves in it, but nothing that you can say, okay, on this particular day, this event is likely to have concluded. That sort of thing. I just don't get that. There's a lot of breakdown here of inhibitions, breakdown of fear, breakdown of restraint, breakdown of constraints, breakdown in the sense of people that are suiciding. So there's something being described that is episodic. That is to say, there is an episode being described that will occur theoretically, if this immediacy data is valid, in that month and a day or so. And it's going to have these elements in it with this kind of language. Going to have, as an aside, it's going to be a good time for UFOs within this period too. So we're going to apparently have a lot of UFO sightings, and that is something I wanted to get into, was the conwoosions from all of that. But anyway, we've got language around breakdown of the delusions relative to the financial system, breakdown of the delusions relative to climate change, government, all different sorts of stuff. So a major collision with reality, as opposed to the fake news marathon of these past 40, 50 years. Something probably just got delivered. Anyway, so in this, by the way, we have more forecasts for atmospheric rivers, dumping of atmospheric lakes, and the starting of the new glaciers, windstorms, new glaciers forming, just repetitious, blah, blah, blah. And some obstacles to people getting out from some of the severe weather. Unfortunately, yet more fatalities from this, and so on. And then the only real spike that I saw in the data was once again on the 28th, and this will be the 28th of February. And it's actually the 27th, 28th, and 29th, there's a little bit of a spike in the midst of this overall arc. And this has desperation, currency, global grid structure, which is the dollar grid, and massive change. And massive and change are a linked phrase. Okay, and those are also supported by all of this stuff about the gold and the silver. So it may be that at the end of this month, there's some kind of a crisis within the gold and silver market within those 3 days, which maybe there's some kind of options delivery. I don't follow that kind of stuff, so I don't know what month we're in, who gives what to whom in any given month or any of that. But I know that that is also episodic, that on the COMEX, that delivery and stuff is only every so often. in any event, like I say, I don't follow any of that. But something is being forecast here within the gold, silver, precious metals in general, including rare earths markets, that will hit emotional peak within this other larger emotional peak that begins on the 24th. And so in that sense, the thing on the 24th would be like that, and 27th, 8th, and 9th, and then the rest of it goes off like that. Okay, so there's repetitions within the data sets as the progression is moved forward in time, where there are dominant primary aspects of this idea of shedding of delusions. So that pops up repeatedly over this month. And so you might be thinking about the deceptions that have been happening recently, and those falling away on this particular time here, as say silver and gold did something, and some of the suppression was revealed, right? And then it may come up here another 5 days later, and so on throughout the month. That's basically what's being suggested here in the data sets, that there's going to be a recurring theme over this episode, which is about 31, 32 days. It may be longer than that, but the range that my process goes out doesn't allow me to extend beyond the end of March. Sorry about that. There's running the heat. There's a lot of dust because it does not get run very often. Anyway, so repetitions there of deceptions, delusions, illusions, all falling away or being crushed. So a lot of words about being crushed. We have a small peak on March 4th that is about aggression. It's also tied into movement and change. So there's going to be some kind of change and movement around March 4th through the 7th. Again, heavily weighted in economic. Some regeneration, some regrowth words, and some build-out words. I think those are related to crypto, but I'm not really sure. And they're also in that period of the 4th through the 7th. Then we have one caution here, which is to watch out for crypto optimism, because not all the cryptos are going to make it, right? Some are truly shitcoins. And as we go forward through this year, this is a year of woo, but it's also a year in which we're going to see the woo that works and the woo that doesn't work. And that's like, like this crap with Simon Parks and Charlie and all these guys. Can't think of the other guy's name. Anyway, so the rest of the year, okay, so that's basically all I've got in the Conwoosions relative to our next month here. But remember our first principles, that military in DC, no real eyes other than a select few, the allowed few, the elite few on the pretendency Biden and crew. Distractions with this meaningless exercise of Trump impeachment, and yet even so, no one's watching. So it's not working, and they're aware of that. Then watch out for all of the disinfo from all of these people that are popping up all over. Okay, so, oh good. Okay, so we can finish up real quick. The rest of the year is of year woo, and we're approaching some of these things fairly rapidly. In my way of thinking, goes towards the effect that we have with June, July, August, and September. And it continues from there, but that particular band of months is very meaningful. We have the legality of the COVID bill forcing government to address a UFO issue in June. And so that allows for the idea that we'd have a couple of months spillover for leaks to occur, even if they try and silence what they actually end up doing. And so that's good. Now, we also have the situation where fundamentally we our species, including all the stupid fuckers like the CCP, all the guys that are bad actors and really don't understand, and our species, excluding the elite who may not be our species, we don't know. But humans are at a big crossroads, and the big crossroads can be solved by a very simple change of mind. We can change the path we're on. We don't have to work very hard at all. All of it will flow extremely easily and very naturally. All we have to do is to adopt the position of acknowledging that there are space aliens present here on Earth and affecting us, and then just proceed from there. Just take that as our first principle. That space aliens have affected us, are here on Earth and have affected us, and then start thinking about it from there. We can think about them affecting us all the way back, therefore we need to find our real history. We can think about them affecting us in the future, therefore we need to think about how we need to react to them and so on. Exopolitics, if you will. And everything flows from there, and it solves tons of problems. The reason we have the problems that we have now, of even the resurgence of communism, the resurgence and the emergence of Wokeism, and Antifa, and all of the crushed individuals, and the broken people, and all the broken systems, and the systems that are seemingly dead-ended, not reaching for anything positive in the future, just sitting there in some kind of dystopian morass and malaise. The reason that is the case is because we're all living a lie. The reason we're living a lie is because for at least the last 74 years, there have been the governments have known about alien presence and have been lying every day as a result of that. Lies build on top of lies, build on top of lies, until the populace, that's all we see are the lies. That's ending now. As the Taoists say, you can't see the peak until except from the bottom of the valley. We're in the bottom of the valley now, and we can see the peak of the lies behind us. All we have to do is to simply turn and extend our view to the future, and we can see the peak of the truth in the future that we can then walk towards. And in a simple change of mind, and that's all we have to do. Now we have to have that change of mind spread throughout government and throughout elsewhere. And if we were to go back and look through all of this bullshit video crap I've put out, it was within an interview that I said this. And I stated that we may find ourselves in a situation where some colonel somewhere would be the one who would be the release valve for the disclosure, for factual officialdom and disclosure. And you could see that in a couple of, I jokingly at the time said, oh, well, maybe some colonel will take over from the military junta and he'll be the one in an act of desperation. Because I knew that we had desperation dominating the economic system as one of the huge drivers for the release of all the classified information. And that's going to peak this summer, sure as hell. You can see it, the handwriting on the wall now. The silver crisis will erode government to the point where the United States government will be in worse shape than Argentina or anything ever on the planet. Will be in worse shape than Somalia by midsummer. And desperation will be the only thing the populace will know. Now, I lived through that desperation years ago because I lived through this shit 2 years ahead. And so I'm through it. I'm into the optimism phase. So you can believe me, we get through this and there's shit on the other side that's really cool. Anyway, so some colonel somewhere in the Pentagon might even be asked by the pretendency. It may come rolling down and someone says, fuck it, let's do it. Stamps it and off it goes. Or it could be there's a colonel that takes over from the military and runs thing and he's the titular head of the triumvirate and he says, okay boys, we're going to do it. It can't get any worse and it can only get better. In any event though, the data sets for years have been saying, and I'm saying for years, you can go back, I don't know how many years we've been discussing this, and they're saying that we would have this release of information, the secrets revealed, the space alien stuff would come out, and our society would change, and everybody's mindset would change. And the speed of the change would just be shocking to all of us. But the eruption into the soaring 20s, now I chose that word deliberately, the eruption into the soaring 20s would just be fantastically fast compared to the morass of slogging through this swamp for these last 60 damn years, right? All the lies in this swamp for the 60 damn years, 74 something, right? My life is not that long though, but all of my life I've been living in this swamp of lies. And it does not do a body good, doesn't do a mind good. But when the sun comes out, the darkness is instantly put away. And so all of a sudden we change, and we change massively. And opportunity just flows everywhere. And it's just, you're beating off all these opportunities with a stick just to decide what the fuck you want to do and have fun at. Because so much stuff just starts rolling out. It's work. We got to educate ourselves. We got to figure out all this technology. We got to stop ourselves from making mistakes, which we will make plenty of, but that's okay. We'll learn. And from that point on, it like I say, it just rushes out of humanity in a remarkable and uplifting way. And we're there. This is the year woo. Now we've got a number of bad months to get through. And that's why, okay, so this now, let's get back to the beginning of this, some 46 minutes ago. I began by saying that, you know, I come across these people with this bad woo and they're out there. And this is why I'm bitching, okay? Because these people are not helping. They're not aiding. They're not uplifting. They're putting out disinformation. Charlie Ward and Simon Parks, they both have that attitude. You can tell them shit and they'll pass it on. They don't mind being disinfo agents. I do mind, right? I really work hard to figure out what's reality and what isn't. And if I think this is reality, I'll tell you. And if I think that is not reality, I will also tell you that. And I'm telling you that right now, what really annoys me is I think that these people with their bad woo, no real conwoosions, just confusion, are going to derail people and add to the problem. And we're just that close to shit breaking loose. And in fact, we should find some real positive examples of that through this next month from the 24th onward, as the silver crisis erupts into a banking crisis, which then burbles up into a gigantic volcano of government crisis that sweeps through the planet, affecting all of the planet, not just the Western world. And in the midst of that chaos, be calm, because this too will pass. And we will get out onto the other side where we will have the release of the technology and an actual factual discussion about what the fuck is our reality as humans here, and the alien presence then has been mucking about with us, and what the hell we're going to do about it. I guess that's it. Okay. Live long and prosper. I don't know why I adopted that, but it's fitting. You know, the cryptos, the silver, you know, the thinking, you know, and your health. It's fitting. Bye, guys.